Hello there, everyone. Welcome to today's live stream. My name is Tyler Hakes. I am the Principal and Strategy Director for the content marketing agency Optimus. And I'm super excited to bring on today's guest. Hiba Amin is the Senior Marketing Manager at a company called Hypercontext, formerly known as Soapbox. They've built this really cool software. It's ultra focused on helping leaders and managers run better meetings, check in with their teams, set goals, and really just put some structure in place around some of the soft elements of management, which I think personally as a leader of a team is super valuable in and of itself. But today we're going to be diving into the content marketing and SEO strategy that they've used to drive their own growth. Hiba has been leading marketing at the team for a few years now, and they've built what I consider to be a pretty enviable brand, and they've got a really cool library of content and different things going on the site. Today, we're going to zoom in on one specific strategy that they've been using, which is a template library. And so they have built an SEO driven template library for goals and meeting templates and one-on-ones and different things. We're going to be diving into the details of that. The template library led to a 51% increase in organic traffic in just 3 months for Hypercontext. So I'm really excited to learn how they put that together, what some of the details are behind the scenes, and what we can learn as marketers and content folks about replicating some of that success. So before we jump in, I'm going to make my usual pitches here. First and foremost, if you are not already a member of our community, top of the funnel, I'd love to have you there. You can join by visiting yesoptimist.com/tofu, TOFU. It's a free Slack community for content marketers, SEO, and kind of marketing folks of all types. We host regular live sessions, Q&As, teardowns. There's job listings, all kinds of stuff in there. So if you want to connect with other smart people on content marketing, SEO, have questions that you want answered, or just want to learn from what everyone else is doing, would love to have you there. Secondly, if you have not already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. As I said, we host these regular live sessions with super smart people and dig into the specific strategies and tactics that are working for them. And the best way to learn about those upcoming sessions, besides joining Top of the Funnel, is to subscribe to our YouTube channel where those will be hosted. And finally, would love if you could just like this video to help other people find it. Would greatly appreciate your help. Awesome. So with all that out of the way, I'm going to introduce again Hiba Amin, who's going to be joining us here. We're going to be talking templates, SEO, and product-led growth. Hey, Hiba.
Hey, how's it going?
Going really well. How are you?
Doing good. Excited that we got to catch up and do this.
Yeah, likewise. I've been following your career here for a while. Just for context for folks on the stream, in another life, Hiba and I worked together at a former company that she was at, and so yeah, I've been kind of following your progress here, and it's just been amazing to see everything that you have built with Hypercontext and everything that the team has done so far.
Totally, yeah, and it's been cool going from being a very, I would call, space cadet when we worked together to now actually having some semblance of knowing what I'm doing with my job.
Yeah, well, I'm a big proponent of the idea of sort of calling out your own imposter syndrome, because I think no matter what I've learned throughout my career is it doesn't really matter where you're at in your career. Like, I think you always feel like a little sense of that too. So I'm the first one to say, like, hey guys, like, I feel like an idiot today. Well, really cool. I'm really excited to dive in. Obviously, we're going to be focusing on content marketing, SEO, kind of all the stuff that you guys are doing, but really want to zoom in on the template library. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm actually going to share my screen so we can look at the Hypercontext website and kind of go through this piece by piece. So let me pull this down here and get my screen share going here. Let's get this pulled up. Okay. All right. is that working there? Are you able to see the screen here? Cool. Okay, so yeah, let's just dive right into it. So templates. So talk to us a little bit about kind of how these are separated here. We've got kind of three sections of the template library.
Yeah, so the one-on-one and team meeting templates, those started about 2 years ago, I would say. It was a project that was already kind of developed or thought through. And when I joined, it was more about creating the content. And so that was a really old part of, or probably not old, but a core part of the app. And what managers and our audience find the most value in is basically offloading some of the cognitive load that they have. Because constantly thinking about, items to add to a meeting, how to make those effective, because this is typically a time that's just such a waste that people complain about most at a company. So how do you put the steps in place to reduce, I would say, that friction, that feeling of wasting time for your team? And so beyond like SEO, I would say that was just a no-brainer resource for our audience. And goals started out last year, actually a year ago, a little over a year ago. And that was based on a new feature that we had launched to the platform, which was goals as a goal setting software beyond just meetings and embedding that into meetings. And so by that point, seeing the success of the agenda templates that we had seen for the past year, it was just a no-brainer to try and replicate that in any way, shape, or form. And that's kind of where the goal examples library, I guess, came to life. Beyond also just our customers, again, they're like, I don't want to think as hard as I am to, do like a lot of the things that go into management and that go into my job. Like, how do I offload this to my team, or how do I have some kind of starting point? So, yeah, it was a no-brainer. And it just worked out that there was a lot of search volume as well, and search intent was there, and all of these different things that go into I would say content. So yeah,
I love that. And one of the things that I think is so fascinating about the product in general, and also about the templates, is that you've got sort of these different like layers of the personas, of like the people that you're speaking to, right? So it's sort of like all managers have this certain level of challenge and some of these pain points related to, as you're saying, right, the friction and the time and the planning that it takes to set up these meetings and run effective meetings and all those things. And then when we like drill into some of the more specific templates, it gets a lot more granular, right? So now we're talking to specific managers of specific types of teams and different things like that. And so we can get, there's sort of levels of template here, depending on what your role is.
Yeah, and I think the best part about these two, which I think was genius from when they initially planned it, was that everything also lives in the app. And so it's not just a front-facing content piece. It's something that's available directly inside the application. And so for people, when they come through and let's say a template is exciting to them, they found it on Google, they came, they're like, actually, this is really interesting. It's a really easy in. So the barrier to entry into the product is just so low, and the time to, that aha moment is a lot faster because, you click through this and then you get into the app, and right there you have your agenda template that you picked, and you can start editing and actually start running better meetings. And so having that connection is just really cool, because now we're building content for SEO, for our future audience and future customers, but also enhancing the product and improving it for existing users.
Right.
And so I guess that's the product-led part of it as well.
Yeah, totally. And I think like, again, if we think about it as sort of a pure content asset too, our last live session, we had Tim from Ahrefs on, and he was talking about how they evaluate keywords and content based on how well their product is a solution for what it is, right? So I think he said they have like a 3-point scale. And I would say, like, in this context, your meeting templates, Hypercontext is a 3 out of 3, right? It's sort of a perfect solution for that specific need or that specific use case. Oh, that's awesome. So I guess real quick, just to kind of look again, so we've got here, we're into the templates section on the site. We've got basically two different types of meeting templates. So one being one-on-one meetings and one being for team meetings. So I want to go through both of these sections, but first of all, let's just dive into one of these. And can you talk to me just a little bit about kind of what we're seeing on the page and what the structure and the setup of this content is?
Yeah, so I guess our CMS is WordPress, but everything on these specific pages is built outside of WordPress. It's built through a separate, I don't know, server tool or API. I don't know, some technical word here, but I build it outside in a portal where I can add everything. And this is basically the API that connects the app to the marketing website for these pages. The image at the top that gets auto-generated based on the items and template that's listed on the page. We have the options to change, if we have people actually submitting templates, which we have for a few. Obviously, we won't attribute that to ourselves. And then going down, we just kind of share a few of the key features, I would say. This is something we've been testing out, just those little tabs there. We suggest what type of meeting you should use this for, the cadence, the time, the length of the meeting. But these are also all just suggestions that people can obviously change and to their liking. So yeah, I mean, I don't think for the most part people don't scroll too far past seeing this image of the agenda template, because they just really care about what's on the agenda. Is it something that makes sense to me? If so, great. We're either going to go create an account, or I'm just going to do this in my own Google Doc and steal some of the questions on here. We have found for some of our users recently is that some people will actually just create an account, go in and not actually use the platform. They just go in to copy and paste the agenda and then leave. And so now this is like, it turns into more of a product opportunity, not necessarily problem, but how do we actually keep those people around that literally just want the content and not necessarily the platform. And so, yeah, most of this, I would say like across every agenda template, this specific section is basically a copy paste version on every single template, except the starter agenda changes based on the content that we tell it to implement. And then we were testing for a while down here, you'll see like a lot more copy. And so this was something we were testing between if it made sense to prioritize traffic and SEO to these specific template pages, or do we create specific blogs? And so still ongoing in terms of looking through what makes the most sense. It was tough because a lot of these also had existing blogs created. So how do you share a lot of the same information without duplicating your own content?
Right.
So that's something that we've been trying to consider. But yeah, beefing up the page a bit just so that the actual template pages also rank is something that we're looking at. Yeah.
So I'd love to dive into two things there. So one, I think this is a common sort of apprehension that people have. You mentioned, right? It's like somebody's going to come in, they're going to get the template, say in another context, you're providing them with, I don't know, an Excel spreadsheet template or something that is sort of a competing solution to your product, right? And that's kind of what's happening here a little bit, right? Is that somebody could conceivably take the content here, put it in Google Docs and not use the actual software. And so I think people are afraid of that, right? But at the same time, it's like, I think about it like any other content, right? Like a certain number of people are going to read your content and you're going to explain to them your solution. And only a small percentage of those people are going to say, oh yes, I'm going to sign up for this software to solve this. A lot of people are going to find another solution. Like that's sort of an inevitable reality. Is that kind of the way that you think about it too? Or do you worry about people stealing the template and doing their own thing?
I don't really worry, to be honest. Like for me, I think if people are sold and come into the app, then they're more likely to retain. If people want to give it a shot, like more than welcome to. But if they want to just copy the content, like we're putting in some processes right now to be able to, or not processes, but we're kind of building a few extra pages and iterations for these, for this specific template library to give people basically what they want. Like if they're so stuck on Google Docs, which, I'll think about some things in the background of my head, because I think that's so inefficient. But if that's your jam, then why block you? The whole point of this library on the marketing facing side is to drive value. This is what customers want. This is what our audience needs. So, if it's not our solution, maybe it will be in the future because we delivered that value at the start. But at the end of the day, like, yes, I would love for conversions to be 100%, but that's not the reality. I would rather people associate with our brand in a positive way, even if they don't sign up today. And that's okay. Like, we see a lot of returning users come back to our website over and over and over again. And we see that our product, there's certain demographics that it's just not a fit. Like, if you're a really small team, or if you're only managing one person, like, you can definitely handle a lot of those things through Google Docs.
Right.
It's not to the point where you need a solution like us. But when you grow and you start experiencing those pains, like, hey, we're here and that's great. And so I guess in short, like, I'd love more people to sign up. But at the end of the day, if people are signing up and not converting and not sticking around, then that's just a vanity metric. And so for marketing, for example, our number one metric is all about signups, like weekly signups. How many companies can we bring onto the platform? But that can get into, for sure, vanity metric land, like, 1,000 people signed up. But if you dive deeper, it's like, okay, how many came back the next day? How many converted to paid users? And so looking at it from a full funnel perspective, I would much rather have, 100 companies sign up a week and 90 of them stick around, and let's say like 70 become paid customers by the end of their trial. Which is just absurd, I would say, conversion rates, which would be pretty cool. But I would rather just speak to specific people and to people who fit into our ICP. And if they have a solution they prefer, then, maybe they'll just think about us when they're looking for value.
And I think what you've identified there, and I think what you guys do so well with these templates is that you first and foremost, you serve the user intent, right? So when we think about search and SEO in particular, like, there's a certain percentage and maybe the majority of people who are just looking for that, like, sort of copy and paste solution of the template. And I think, like, when you're building a template library, that's something that you have to do. Like, you can't necessarily, like, trick people into using your product by saying, like, oh, you're looking for a template, but instead of a template, you should use our thing. Because I think that's another way that people try to accomplish this. And I think so what you do is you say, okay, hey, here is the template, but also while we have you here and we know that you are looking for a solution to a specific problem, we can also prescribe our product as another solution or as an additional solution to this problem that you're experiencing.
Yeah. And I mean, like, personally, like, I guess my marketing philosophy maybe has changed a lot in the last 3-4 years, but since coming to Soapbox, now Hypercontext, like, I'm doing everything in my power to avoid having forms on the website, like marketing forms, which I feel like is pretty radical. But I just, like, I personally get so annoyed when I sign up for an asset and then just get put into just some stream that is so irrelevant, and then into, like, sales calls and, like, all of these things that just clutter your inbox. And so I don't want to be that person, that company as well to our audience. I'd rather just have everything live out in the open, almost like open source, I guess, for marketing, so that people can make decisions for themselves over time. And will that affect our numbers at a large scale? Probably, in terms of just staying top of mind. But I think that, I don't know, I'm just a really strong believer that if you have really great content, people will come back for more. And we do see a lot of people returning users come back to these pages over and over again because they're a valuable resource. And like, we see people share it and help us on the distribution side because they find it a valuable resource and it's open. Like, you don't have to force someone to sign a form to be able to see a specific template, or you have to sign up for the product if you want to fully use it. But it's all there. If you want to steal it, take it, it's there. And so, yeah.
I think another really cool thing too is that once you have this page and you're ranking for keywords and you're generating traffic, then you can start to experiment, as you sort of mentioned, right? You can start to experiment with, okay, what can we offer them? How can we get more of these people to convert into product users versus just copy and pasting the template? What's sort of the threshold there of what we need to give away versus what we can put behind the product? All these different questions that people probably have, right? Like, don't try to optimize first, right? Try to get some traction and then try to optimize. I guess that's my takeaway there.
100%.
Awesome. So the other thing So I guess just for everyone who is on the stream here, so if we click this template, it basically is just going to take it, or this button is going to take us right into like a sign up flow, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So that's a pretty nice, like, kind of direct integration. You go straight from this, this specific use case into the product where you're signing up, and then presumably, you're kind of taken into the context of this specific meeting template. You also mentioned this additional content here at the bottom. Can you just again refresh our memory, kind of how you came to add this content and kind of what the thinking is behind it?
Yeah, I mean, we write a blog for most of the templates, I would say, that exist in our library. And the blogs are typically more around search volume, search intent, opportunities, like things like that. Mm-hmm. Because obviously for the rest of the templates that don't have a lot of this copy, it's a little bit harder, I would say, to rank when you're competing against other people who write blogs about that specific template. And so for us, this was just a bit of a test to see if adding more information to these pages is going to help not only lift, I would say, traffic to each specific template page, but is it going to lift signups as well, and good quality signups at that. It's still, I would say, fairly early on, but I think that the biggest challenge there was that, like I said, a lot of these templates have blogs. So it was kind of creating the content in a way that didn't compete with other pieces and cannibalize each other, basically. And so at this point for me, I think where I stand is definitely adding a lot more of that beefy, like added context into the blog side of things, and to keep these pages fairly simple, because it's like a lot more page to scroll for people, which I don't think is great when you're trying to just convert people.
Right.
I don't think the copy necessarily helps in selling the product itself. It does add a lot of context for people into the actual template if they're on that specific page. But again, I think the information is available. People, when they come to this page, they're a lot more transactional, I would say.
Right.
Like, I just want something to help me run a better meeting for my monthly one-on-one. And so, I think where I'm kind of, it's early on, but I think where I'm kind of deciding is like keep that long form content on the blog and keep these as is. But I'm obviously I'm going to keep it around for a while and see how it fares. But even when we look at like link building, most of the link building efforts go towards the blog versus like individual specific template pages. Again, just because the blogs are a lot easier to rank. We can easily push people from the blog to the templates library, which we see like that's a really good funnel for our audience. And so, yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. A couple like tactical takeaways here that I really like. So first of all, as you mentioned, like I think sometimes having that additional content is important, right? So if this were just like basically the top section of this page, you may have a difficult time, and for others who are trying to replicate this, you might have a difficult time ranking for these queries without a lot of content on the page, depending on what the query is, how competitive it is, all these other factors, of course. Sometimes you do need sort of additional content to basically signal to the users and to Google, like, hey, like we actually covered the topic here. Like it's not just a gate, essentially, or a landing page. But what I like that you did is first of all, you guys have the context serves the user intent first, which is I want a template, right? And that's the main thing that you see here, right? Like you could easily, as you mentioned, you could land on this, you could do the search, land on this page, and get this template without even interacting with this content. So it's not getting in the way of the user intent, which I think is hugely valuable and really important. And then I think, like as you said, like you kept this content unique enough to the context of the page that it wouldn't really, it's not cannibalizing other content you made. It's not, and it's not like irrelevant. I think that's the other thing that a lot of people do is they say, oh, we have to add more content to this page to help it rank, so we're just gonna slap whatever content we can come up with. But I think in this case, it's super targeted and relevant content, which is helpful.
Totally, yeah.
Is there anything else on this page that you think about behind the scenes that we haven't touched on yet?
I think just honestly, it's just like for us, it's like we just want more volume. We want to create more templates. We've seen how much value it's driven to our audience, and it's just trying to find time to build more. Like, how deep do we go from a long tail keyword? Like, do we put a template together for like a VP of marketing with their content marketing manager and their one-on-one? Like, how deep do we go? And so that's something we're kind of exploring. And it's, I think the research process there is very much less about, I would say, search, and more about, is this something our customers want? And most of those answers we typically get just from hopping on customer calls and asking probably a lot of prompting questions. And that's kind of where we landed with the goal examples library, was just mostly through customer calls. Initially started as like just team goals, and they were like, yeah, team goals are easy to make. So I just want to know like what goals I should give to my social media manager versus my content manager versus my like SEO specialist. Like, how do I keep them moving towards, and I'm jumping to the next piece of content, but basically it's just like using customer calls, customer wants and needs, and how do we make something out of it? And how do we basically answer their questions, drive value, deliver resources that are actually helpful to them? Yeah, but I'm going far ahead.
No. That's super fascinating. But before we get to the goals, though, I just want to take one step back, because you mentioned the keyword research process and kind of how that integrates there. Can you just talk us through that? So it sounds like most of the sort of high level ideas are coming from these calls, or like kind of customer discovery discussions. And then how does keyword research kind of fit into the workflow?
I would say keyword research, it just is how we prioritize, I think. It's the keyword research will drive the blog strategy. It won't necessarily drive the specific template strategy. Because I think there's a few templates that are on here that won't really have a high search volume, I would say. And so for us, it's a lot less about the volume game with these pages. And it's a lot more like if one specific template only has, and that specific keyword for it only has 20 monthly searches, but that search intent is so high, like that to me is a win, because that's bringing in potentially 20 people a month who are so relevant, who will experience the exact problem that we're trying to solve with this piece. And so I would say the keyword research it's heavier on the intent side than it is on the search volume side. And for added context too, this is the first quarter that we're ever having traffic goals for the marketing team. We focused so much on signups, and we've got a few hypotheses that we have going in the background. And so for this quarter, we're just going to see, okay, if we increase traffic, how does that impact the rest of the funnel? Keeping in mind that the traffic needs to be like high quality. So it's a lot of, I guess, added metrics or KPIs below that big traffic number. And so, I find that even with the goals library, like traffic wasn't really the goal. It was a really incredible byproduct, which is a little bit crazy to say considering how much it impacted our traffic in the best way possible. But I prioritize search intent before everything else. Like if it's there, then if the keywords are low, that's still a win. Especially because with the templates libraries and the goals library, it's so long tail for every single one that for the most part, volume's not going to be very high. But I would say most of them we do a bit of research around like the intent, the volume, and that just helps us prioritize over anything. And while we were initially building out the template library and the goals library, I was a team of one. So you can just imagine, how important prioritizing your time is. And so, I didn't spend like the craziest amount of time on SEO, especially for the goals library. There's like over 70 roles, like searching each specific one. I think would have just been a waste of time. A lot of it came from just knowing our customers really well and what they wanted. And that was our process of just trying to find more people like our customers.
That makes sense. Yeah. So just to give people a sense of the scale here, right? So we've got 61 meeting templates, and then what do you say it is, like 180 goal examples. Wow, that's
Yeah, I checked this morning. We hit 247
oh,
this
wow.
week. So got to update some copy.
Okay, so that's another good context for everyone, is that's an ongoing project and an ever evolving.
Totally.
But it sounds like the workflow is, hey, we have these kind of ongoing customer discussions and discovery calls, and we're hearing, hey, our customers seem to really be interested in a meeting template for, backlog grooming or whatever. And you build a big list. You say, okay, we got these 50 potential templates, and then you're going to go and say, okay, I'm going to do keyword research and try to see should any of these be a priority based on what the keyword data and what the search intent looks like. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, I would say so. In some cases, we skip the keyword research process if it's been overwhelming, where we've been on, let's say, 3 or 4 customer calls and they all say the same thing. Then we're like, okay, this is a no-brainer. Just make it. Even if there's no, for us, SEO is a really big distribution channel for us, and Google search specifically. Up until a month ago, we hadn't really run any paid ads, mostly because prioritization, again, I had no clue how to run paid ads. So I spend hours and hours ripping my hair out, trying to figure that out when organic's working, and that's where I could put my time until we can hire people. And so, yeah, sometimes we skip the keyword process for specific templates just because we know it's something that's going to drive value, and at the very least, it'll drive value in the product. Maybe not necessarily on the acquisition side, even though it tends to work out for the most part. But beyond that too, we also tend to distribute these pieces both across the blog, sharing it in specific template, in specific posts to push people to this next step and basically push them through the funnel, or on social media, or in specific Slack groups that are really dedicated to leadership, especially ones on the engineering side. There's a few that we're a part of that we sometimes talk to people, and that's our audience to an extent. So yeah, I feel like there's just a lot of different ways that we distribute these pieces that I don't have to rely so heavily on Google for each specific template. That SEO and keyword research is incredible, but it's not always a do or die.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's super helpful. And then can you talk to me a little bit? So I think you said that the meeting templates, at least the initial version of this, launched about 2 years ago, you said?
Yeah, a little over.
And what was sort of the impact immediately, and how long did it take for you to really start to see kind of a measurable impact on traffic and conversions?
For the meeting templates, I honestly can't recall. With the goals library, it was almost instantaneous.
Oh, wow.
Which was just the coolest thing to see, going into Search Console every day, and it was just growing and growing, and you're like, holy crap, what's happening? I've never seen content rank this fast and also drive clicks and bring people in. And that was mostly because, again, it was just so many long tail keyword pages that were published in a day. I think we had about 100 that got published. And so since then, I would say just looking at our analytics and looking at a couple of our mixed panel is, I don't know what category that would fall under, but our some analytics software to know about signups and real signups versus Google goals. Our templates, libraries, and related assets to the agenda templates and to the goal examples, that's driven about 30% of our acquisition in the last year, which is just crazy because it's basically 3 assets and then a few blogs. And so that's just been wild, and I've been loving the ride. And so, yeah, we're going to keep adding to them because that's what our customers want. And that's how we prioritize our content marketing efforts at Beast.
Yep.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me here, and this kind of mirrors something that I tell folks all the time, right, is that people tend to get blinded by search volume and some of these other metrics and thinking about traffic rather than conversions. And I think especially for an early stage company and thinking about something as high intent and as sort of down funnel as a template and as a template library, it really is about stacking those bricks, right? Small win. If you can put up a page that's going to generate 5 more users every month, and then you can scale that and replicate it 100 times, that's way more valuable than going after a keyword that gets 1,000 search volume, but is it going to convert into users?
Yeah, and I've definitely fallen into the trap. Like I used to care so much about traffic, not even like looking at the rest of the funnel. Like, is the traffic staying on the website? Is it converting, or demos going up? Like whatever those metrics are. And then I came to this company, and it was just there was no sales team. So I think the pressure was off in terms of, driving MQLs and things like that. It was just, how do we increase signups, and how do we make sure that the signups we're getting, we hit a certain percentage of people that stick around the next day, and that stick around after a week, and that upgrade from their trial, like all of these things. And that's when I kind of had a bit more of an, I don't know if it's an epiphany or just like, I finally it finally clicked. I was like, none of these numbers matter if revenue's not going up. And like, for marketing at Hypercontext, like I said, we have no sales team. And so the pressure is on to really focus on driving quality signups, quality people coming into the platform. And so if we're doing a bad job at that, no matter how high our traffic is, the business isn't going to grow because we're not bringing in the right people. There's no people to kind of like, do you know what I mean? Like the product basically the users walk themselves through the product. They self-upgrade. They do all of these things. It's not someone hand-holding you for the most part through the whole process, like leading you down the funnel post sign up, post you being a lead. Even though we have like marketing materials in place and emails and like calls if you want them, it is just like the most product-led, the least sales-led, I guess, company I've ever been a part of. And I think that just helped everything click so much to say these numbers don't mean anything if they don't have an impact. And I think that's been a cool transition in my head.
Yeah, I think that's again like a very just like interesting takeaway is that in a sort of a product-led strategy, in a lot of cases I think it does make sense to sort of invert that process, right? So I think a lot of people still do keyword research first, and then kind of work from the keyword data to like figure out the other stuff, versus like starting by really understanding the customer and then kind of validating that with keyword research and sort of working backwards, so to speak.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to jump now over to the other side. So we talked through both of these sections, the one-on-one templates and the team meeting templates, obviously serve different purposes, but they're kind of structured in the same way. And then we've got these goals and OKR examples, which are structured a little bit differently. So first of all, we've got a nice little set of options here. Is there anything that in particular that went into the thinking or the categorization here?
Yeah, I mean, this started at such a small scale content piece. It blew out of proportion, like from a scope perspective, so fast, partly due to me being selfish and partly due to just our customers wanting more. But we had this goals feature that was launching, and I was part of a lot of the product feedback calls, just kind of sharing the mock-ups with customers, trying to understand what they wanted. And a lot of the time, the same thing came up, like, are you guys going to have examples in there similar to your templates library? Like I loved having those. And so that kind of ignited a bit of a fire in me and in our team to create this asset. Was one, we had a proven success from the agenda templates library, and we really wanted to replicate that. How do we replicate it? And this was the very first opportunity that came up. That was just a no-brainer. And then again, it was something our customers wanted. So we started small scale. We started with 3 departments, which was CS, engineering, and sales, typically because those are the people at organizations who have the most direct reports. Like marketing teams are fairly small compared, at least in the tech world, I'll say. And so those were people that we found would be feeling the most stress when it came to what our product could offer and help solve. And so we started there. I think we had 30 goals. And then I was just looking, and I remember like I found a Slack message I had sent to my boss, who's Brennan, the CEO. And I was like, Brennan, I can't launch this with just 30 goals. Like this is it's embarrassing. Like this is like not good enough. And so kind of bit off a lot more than I could chew. And so the process there was I also wanted my own goals. That's the selfish piece, was like, I'm putting together all these goals for all these departments and not myself. Are you kidding me? I want to help myself out too. And so that's where marketing came in. And then we started thinking like, oh, diversity and inclusion, those are other things that we can have. Personal and professional development, those are pretty generic goals that could apply to everyone. Team specific ones, those would be like really targeted and relevant. And so for each specific department at the, I guess, goals home view, you have a bunch of roles that you can pick from. And we started looking at org charts. We started looking at salary reports for specific departments to see what roles came up. So it was a lot less keyword research, I would say, because we did, I would say we did a couple spot checks to say, okay, are people searching for customer success goals, or are they searching for specific roles? And when the more obviously broad you get, the harder it is to rank. And so for pages that don't have this crazy amount of content on them, how do you rank with not a lot of information? And so, it was really just focused on, at this point, the strategy was very focused on the customer side of things. But the way we built it, I would say, had more of an SEO thought process behind it. And that was mostly around the URL structures. So how does each page have a specific link? How does it make sense in terms of the keyword we'd be hoping to rank for with each of these pages? And then I guess through the process, and this was probably the biggest distribution unlock for me, was I was really overwhelmed trying to create 180 goals by myself. It's like it takes a big mental toll on you, but also like, who am I to make engineering goals? Like that doesn't really make sense. So it was just expanding who could contribute to not just internally at the company, but people who target people in these specific audiences. So Vitally, for example, they're a customer success platform. That's what they live and breathe. So they would have a lot better understanding of what goals could be put in place for a CS manager. And so that was just an easy way to open the floodgates. So when we actually launched the library, we had so many people sharing it all over because they all had a piece of ownership of this really value-driven content piece that not only helped our audience and drove value to them, but also drove value to their specific audience, because now they can say, hey, to all the CSMs in our database, here's goals that we put together with Hypercontext for you. Go check them out. And so it was just a win-win for everyone that was involved. And then, like I said, traffic just started going crazy month over month over month. And a lot of them were surprising, like last minute roles that we added, for example, DevOps in engineering. I didn't really expect that to be a big one, because it's not like, it's a somewhat common role, but it's not that common, like to the point where for most of the startups I've been a part of, I haven't had a DevOps engineer. And that was one of our top performing pages. And so that's why I didn't want to focus too much on keyword research for every single role. I think it helped prioritize, it helped uncover specific roles we weren't necessarily thinking about. But I didn't want that to be kind of what's narrowing me in as we were creating things. Like if someone suggested, like, I can create DevOps goals for you, I would be like, absolutely, like, go for it. And so, hopefully that tangent makes sense.
No, I mean, again, I think like the takeaway there is like, really starting by understanding the customers, and then, even more broadly than that, understanding like potential customers. So not even just people who are using the platform, but as you mentioned, like you looped in all these people who are sort of potential users and said, hey, how are you thinking about this? And what are your needs? And then use that to sort of steer the strategy. And then again, using keyword research more as a validation tool than as like the starting place, which I think is super smart, and it just makes a ton of sense. I was gonna say the other thing that I love about this in general, from an SEO perspective, is like you've got sort of, first of all, like this really neat architecture set up here where you can sort of browse by department and then dive into the specific team members, which makes a ton of sense from a user perspective. And then from an SEO perspective, you get the benefit of having these, whatever it is, several dozen pages of very specific targeted content for each individual on the team, and setting goals for that specific role. Yeah,
and it ties so well into the value props that we deliver. And in our positioning for the goals platform specific, or the goals feature specifically. And so, yeah, it's just a no-brainer. And customers love it because at this point, like for me, it was really cool to actually be able to experience it for the first time as a manager. Was just letting, my team know, hey, look at the goals library that we've built, pick some goals for yourself that you want to achieve based on our team goals. And so for me, it was really easy because now my team got to be involved in my goal setting process and the team's goal setting process. And they had a bigger sense of ownership. And I had a little bit less work on my plate in terms of coming up with these things because, I'm hiring people with the expectation that they're going to be the expert in whatever domain they get brought in. I'm here to support, but I'm fully going to trust you to do a good job within, like, whether it's content, whether it's social media. So I would rather you level up and take ownership of that specific piece and what you're contributing to the team or to the company-wide goals. And so that's kind of how we also pitch it to customers. It's like, just send this page to your team and say, come up with your own goals and let's discuss, like, in our next one-on-one, let's figure out, like, tweak them a bit to make sure that it's all aligned and we're all moving in the same direction. But it's just been really cool. Is like I've been preaching this for so long, and now that I finally hired one person on my team so far, I actually get to kind of experience that. And I personally now see the value myself too, which is just a really, really cool feeling.
Right.
As a content marketer, like, you're not just doing things for your audience, now you're doing things for yourself a bit selfishly. And like firsthand experiencing the value, which has just been so cool.
For sure. That's awesome. So you mentioned a while ago that you're still kind of actively adding goals and building out this the library here. Do you do any optimization now that these are live? Like, have you gone back and made any adjustments or edits or anything like that to these pages?
We made a couple edits in terms of just the page structure. Like, there was a few things that we built incorrectly. Like, didn't realize that there were a few H1s and things like that after properly auditing, because we just built it so frantically. There's a couple conversion tests that we're pushing out soon. And then beyond that, it's just been honestly trying to keep up creating more content as a result, similar to how we did with the templates, creating blogs that push people to the agenda templates library. We're trying to create blogs at this point, or find new distribution channels, I would say, to drive people to these specific pages. But outside of that, I would say some things that we're going to be testing, which we haven't to this date, just because it's been a little bit weird since it all lives kind of outside of WordPress. So it's a little bit harder to control. So to do like it's basically doing tests on a specific role page versus like the whole collective. So changing the image, like looking back, changing the CTAs that show up. We've done a lot of work in terms of changing the experience. Something else we're doing is that we saw that these pages were really great for actually driving subscribers to our newsletter, but not every specific role. And the subscribe button only shows up once I think there's more than 5 goals on the page.
Okay.
And so one optimization we're doing is going back and making sure that we add and beef everything up to hit that specific threshold, so that we can drive more people to subscribe to the newsletter. Because goals, unlike agenda templates, is like you have to talk to us to get access to it because it's part of the business plan.
Got it.
Like, you still get your trial, but I would say the entry into the product is a lot less fluid in terms of getting that time to value. And so I think for the most part, we've been testing, like, do we just push people to the product and see if they message us and talk to us? Do we push people to the feature page? Which they do, which is really cool. They do talk to us immediately, like, hey, I really want to try this out. Like, what's going on?
That's awesome.
So I guess for me, like, I get into very perfectionist land. I'm like, this experience sucks. Like, we need to fix it. Whereas my CEO's kind of stance on it is, if marketing creates enough of a problem for a product, then product will prioritize making the experience better. Otherwise, like, we're getting 2 teams to build this whole thing and that might not work. So let's make enough of a problem for product. And that's like my new job, is like, how many problems can I create for product in terms of like pushing things to fix or improving experiences and things like that.
That's awesome.
which like is very competing because in my head I'm like, oh, this could be better. But they're like, you know what? It's fine. Like you focus on driving people and then we'll fix things as we fix them. And so most of the optimizations I would say with the goals, goal examples library has been done through product versus marketing.
Got it.
But I think there's been little tweaks that we've done, but nothing as like full scale. Right now we're focusing on the agenda templates and we've got a really big push coming probably in the next 2 or 3 months that we're building. So that would, I think, triple the pages there.
Wow. Yeah.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, so it's not just doubling down the strategy, tripling down.
Yeah, as long as we do it right. But again, it's not necessarily building more content. It's just packaging up the content differently.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
that.
Well, that's another great takeaway there for folks too. Is like, I think template libraries in general tend to have a lot of opportunity to kind of repurpose and repackage and remix content. So you're not just like sitting there writing new blog posts every day. You know, you do get a chance to sort of say, okay, how do I recontextualize this goal for a different person? You know, well, it's a slightly it's a different goal, but it's still relevant to customer success or whatever. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity to do that, and I think that's something that as content marketers, as SEOs, like part of our job is to get smarter about creating assets that we can use in more ways and repurpose and remix and repackage to generate value without having to start from scratch every time.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. So is there anything, I guess, in terms of the content itself or the structure or the page stuff that we haven't covered yet that you wanted to touch on or think has been helpful for you guys?
I think the only thing I'll kind of say is don't think about these things as these massive projects. Like we have to start somewhere. And so if you're in the process of building this yourself, you're going to have to start somewhere too. Start with a blog, test out the idea. Is the template something that people actually care about and find value beyond talking to your customers? Like talk to your customers and don't let CS or sales be gatekeepers. Just go message them yourselves. That's been a big unlock. But yeah, I think start with an MVP. Like you don't have to build this crazy API that connects into your app and like take over a lot of engineering time. Just write a few blogs, put together a spreadsheet, see how it works. And if you see some traction, then you kind of start building your case.
Yep.
But I fall into that trap. I always think like, we need to do this right. We need to do it big and great. And like, but in reality, like, and I'm learning this hard truth slowly, but in reality, like people don't care. People won't notice. And that's a hard truth to say as a marketer because you're like, oh, I'm building this for you. Like you should love it. And they're like, okay. So, I mean, just start small scale, prove out the idea, prove out the thoughts, and then you can have some more ammo to bring the whole team on to build something cool and big.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of just like starting, you know, if we were to build something like, let's just say we're going to build a goal template library or something like I love the idea of starting with a blog post and sort of using that as like an MVP version. You know, and as I said, I think like, you know, while traffic is a vanity metric, I think it's the first step, right? If you can get traffic to a page, then you can optimize the experience. Then you can figure out what does this really need to look like? How do we convert that traffic better? And maybe the first version does suck. Maybe, you know, maybe it gets traffic, but nobody converts or whatever. But you can always improve from there. So yeah, definitely. I'm a big proponent of that as well. You know, start with whatever you've got and whatever you can do, and then build from there.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's see a couple of final questions. I just want to kind of circle back to the kind of big picture and outcomes here. So we've talked about a couple of different metrics that you've been able to share with us. So one is you shared that you saw a 51% increase in organic traffic with the launch of the template library. And then you also mentioned that the template library accounts for about 30% of all user signups right now, which is both are just amazing, amazing numbers. Can you talk a little bit about how that compares to, say, other types of content, like on your blog, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like a lot of the blog we focus pretty heavily. For a while, we did on agenda template content. I would say that our team is historically hasn't been great on the awareness side of things. And that's mostly me and the work that I've put in is like, I'm a very, I guess, you know, it was me by myself. So how do I prioritize time to impact numbers? And the best way to do that is create middle and bottom funnel content. And so now we're getting into it in terms of focusing on a bit more awareness level pieces. But I would say, you know, the blog, when it comes to conversions, it's just packaging up our templates library differently every single time. So here's a listicle with 9 one-on-one templates. Here's a listicle for, you know, questions you can ask during a skip level meeting. By the way, here's a template for that meeting. You know, here's 5 different agenda examples to help you run better meetings. So it's been packaging up those resources in a different way over and over again. So I would say like the blog's purpose is not only, you know, obviously answering questions that our customers have and talking about more topical things like the Great Resignation is a big topic right now for our space. So how do we tell you, like, how do you resign without burning bridges? Like, how do you tell people at your company that 10 employees just quit without freaking everyone out? Like a lot of these topics that will come up for our audience. But yeah, again, most of it is really focused on those repackaging the templates library and finding different ways to rank on a more broad scope. So hybrid meetings, we have more of a chance to rank with a blog, like a blog post, than we do with just the one specific template, not a whole bunch of content on it. And so it's I don't know, it's kind of like getting through a bunch of the funnel in one go almost. Like we find that a lot of people convert through these pieces and see us as a solution or share it. It's a lot easier to share these things as well. Sorry, I forgot the question. I've gone on such a tangent.
No. I think that's amazing. I mean, it sounds like the answer is that they work in tandem, right? So it's not necessarily you're not looking at the blog as a separate channel or a separate strategy. It's really the blog is generating awareness and driving traffic to the templates, which is driving conversions. And so you're really sort of using the templates as like sort of a super contextual and specific like layer of middle funnel content, essentially, right? Like you're sort of capturing people on the blog and through these other things, and then you're funneling them into the templates where they're most likely to get directly into the product.
Yeah, and I think like honestly, it's been really easy to talk about our product in like even the top of funnel pieces. It's been easy to talk about things and just frame it and bring it back to the core features or the beyond like just the templates libraries. Because our product fits into like workplace conversations and everything we do is like talking about how to, you know, not be a shitty person at work, basically. Excuse my French, but it's really easy to just say like, hey, a lot of people are quitting. Maybe you should talk about that in your one-on-one with your team to make sure they're feeling okay. By the way, there's an easier way to do that. You know, but I think we do it in like obviously not as upfront of a way as that. It's very not as salesy, I would say, or pushy. But I mean, you can all go look at the blog and kind of come to that conclusion yourselves or a different conclusion. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think you nailed that. I mean, I think you're creating kind of multiple entry points there, right? Like in some cases, some people are going to convert directly to the product based on the content here. In some cases, they're going to take sort of that next step, which is to check out the template and then hopefully convert into the product. You're sort of creating multiple opportunities to pull people into the product again, which product-led growth. That's generally the goal, right? Is get people in the thing and using the tool. So yeah, I love that strategy. I love the fact that that you know everything is sort of built on top of those template library in a way, right? Like you've got sort of this whole catalog of content that feeds down into that and then drives conversions, which is just awesome.
Thanks.
Very cool. Well, we're just about our hour here. Hiba, is there anything else that we didn't touch on, or anything else that you want to share with the group here?
I think the last thing is like just emphasizing, like seriously talk to your customers, like, and really, really don't let sales or CS be gatekeepers. I think that's been the biggest unlock, especially if you're a small team, but also if you're a big team as well. Your customer, like our headline on our website is just words out of our customers' mouths. And I've tried to beat it for over 2 years now, and I can't. And like, it's frustrating because I'm like, I know there's better words, but clearly not. So like, talk to your customers, because they're going to help you improve the whole funnel. They're going to help you create content that's relevant to your audience, that keeps up with, you know, the changing demands of your industry and of your users. And so like, just, I don't know, book a call a week at the very least, and it's going to fuel you. It's going to fuel you creatively. It's going to fuel your numbers. It's going to, I don't know. I'm not going back ever to not talking to customers, because that's just been really cool. So go do it.
That's awesome. That's a great final tip. Well, thank you again so much for your time today. Thanks for sharing everything here. Where should folks find you on the internet?
I guess Twitter is probably where I'm going to be most responsive. And I don't know if I can put a handle anywhere, but
here, I think I got you here. So
okay. Yeah, there we go.
There we go. All right. Yeah. So again, Hiba Amin, Senior Marketing Manager at Hypercontext. Thank you so much for sharing all this awesome information with us about the template library that you all have built and the success you've had so far. If you have not already, go ahead and find her on Twitter here. Her handles here in the chat. And thanks all for joining us today. Until next time, have a good one.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.